Evening, everyone. Afternoon. What is it? Afternoon. Get it right. Happy Friday, everyone. As there's no news, there's absolutely no news today. Deputy leadership contest. Lucy Powell and Bridget Phillipson. I can't tell whether that makes it more spicy or it's just going to actually just fizzle out now because they're Brad there saying thank goodness Thornbury isn't in it. Say I would have backed Thornbury, you know. There were suggestions she just wanted for revenge for not being put in cabinet. I mean, I would just check. I'm not sure about that. I mean, granted, she wanted to be in cabinet. Happy midnight, yes. Hiya, happy midnight. That's a good one to go with. Be midnight somewhere. Where's it midnight? You're going to have to look it up now. The you know, obviously Emily Thornbury didn't. You know, she wanted to be in cabinet. Sure. And I think she should have stayed in cabinet. I can understand. I actually approved of Starmer's choice of Herma for Attorney General, but you could have moved her to another role. No, I think I would have still backed Thornbury. I've waited to see what she'd have said. I didn't like the fact she was leaning into a little bit of populism, but could be strategic. But anyway, it's not. It's not. It's down to Bridget Phillipson and Lucy Powell. Now, in terms of both of them, they're actually quite similar, really, aren't they? There might be one big difference between the two, which I'll come to. The Guardian have certainly been reporting on that one, which is making me think I'd probably back Bridget Phillipson. But in point of fact, I'm quite, you know, I'm equally happy stroke unhappy with each of them. I've seen them both at the dispatch box. They both handle themselves very well. They're both really, I mean, they both went to Oxford, of course, they're clever. Lucy Powell went to Oxford to study chemistry, though. So she's a scientist, so she gets bonus points for that. Bridget Phillipson, if you want to tick the boxes, she ticks the boxes. She's a woman, she's northern. They're both northern women, by the way. But Bridget Phillipson is clearly working class. I say clearly working class, not that you'd know to listen to her. She's not as obviously in your face working class as Angela Rayner, but she is working class, like, you know, council house job. Lucy Powell comes from she's not posh, she comes from an ordinary background. So, I mean, to me, there's not really a lot in it. You know, people who use this working class moniker thing, it's like, what's the reason why we want more people from the working classes in Parliament? Because we want more people who understand what life's like when, you know, for ordinary people, basically. I mean, to me, Lucy Powell, Bridget Phillipson on that point, they're probably very similar. Wangry Pagan there saying Powell over Phillipson. So what are the reasons then? So if we're going to have to pick one, what are the reasons? I will just bring in one little thing, though, while you're sort of putting your comments in. Because for me, when I sort of saw it was going to be Powell and Bridget Phillipson, I just thought to myself, do you know what? I don't mind. They're both of them. They know what they're doing. They're intelligent. They're both really good at the dispatch box. However, neither of them's a big personality. Like, you know, do you know what I mean? In terms of that charisma that transcends more widely. The sort of thing a lot of politicians at the front bench miss these days. Angela Rayner had charisma. Neither of these two do. Like, I think back to September 2023, and this was the time when schools, like in the news, there were quite a few schools collapsing. The old RARC thing, because the government hadn't been replacing them, right? The Tories hadn't been replacing them. So Bridget Phillipson, she at the time was Shadow Education Secretary, right? She should have been I'd already said, both she and Wes Streeting were promoted to the Shadow Cabinet at the same time. Starmer promoted both of them, thinking of them as stars for the future. And Wes Streeting, he made a name for himself. He was getting himself in the papers, he was handling the media and all the rest of it. She didn't really. And even in that September, when the Shadow Education Secretary should have been all over the papers, she didn't really make any impact. So she's not good at that. But then neither's Lucy Powell. Lucy Powell is very experienced, you know. She's been in politics all her life. Like, although she did a sensible degree at Oxford, she didn't use it. She went straight into politics. Both of them have worked in politics, actually, all their lives, I have to say. But Lucy Powell, much more experience, really, at various levels. But so it's like they're both the sort of people who are capable, but like behind the scenes, which possibly suits me, because the last thing I want this deputy leader thing to become is a source of division in the party. That's the last thing I would want. And we'll go through some comments before I bring in this other little facet. I think other stuff happening in the news will help. For once, lack of public attention may help Labour. Well, I don't think there is that much happening. I mean, the Charlie Kirk thing is like, you know, it's... I mean, it's just a manhunt at the moment in America, isn't it? It's a manhunt in a different country. That's what it boils down to right now. In terms of other things, I mean, I will just point out the Stephen Lawrence review. There's now going to be an official review. So his mother has called for, you know, if there are any witnesses, can you come forward? I'm not sure there'll be any in the viewers, but you might. Maybe you've got some information. So, you know, that's in there. There's going to be a UN Security Council meeting tonight about Russia's incursion into Poland. So there's, you know, I mean, it's not that there's no news, but there's no, like, you know, really spicy British news. Do you know what I mean? Phillipson is James Callaghan in a skirt. She's smug, arrogant, thinks she's the be-all, end-all. I don't get that. I've actually met her. I don't get that impression at all. I mean, I suppose you can get various impressions. If, again, what I've just said about Phillipson and Powell is neither of them are very good at presenting themselves. So they miss a lot of the sort of political arts, really. So Lihai's saying here, this is what I was going to come on to. The rumour is Powell fits into Burnham's Trojan horse back to take over. Baffles me how MPs think a bit of charisma is only what's needed. It's not only what's needed, but it is useful. But yes, so what the Guardian have been pointing out. Now, I will say Powell is denying it, but there is talk that she is seen as you say, the Trojan horse for Burnham. I am going to say, so there's this new group that's formed in Labour. So we've had, you know, in terms of like groups in Labour, like in parliamentary groups of MPs, you've got the SCG, the Socialist Campaign Group. So they're on the left, although they don't very often talk about issues on the left. They mostly talk about other stuff because, you know, they're not the brightest, which is disappointing. We have now, of course, Blue Labour. So we're used to the idea. We've got this left-wing, hard left group, should we say, hard left group in Labour. We've got this socially conservative group in Labour. So a new group has emerged, which is described as a centre-left group, which you go, okay, fine, fair enough. It's called Mainstream, right, which is a fatuous name for it. But, you know, at the end of the day, nothing wrong with MPs forming these groups. But what it sounds like to me, it's supposed to be a group that's going to go, hang on a minute, we don't like what Blue Labour are doing, can we sort of bring it back? Which sounds like the sort of thing I would support, right? But in reality, it is very, very obviously a Andy Burnham Trojan horse. That is what it is. It's really obvious. Like, again, reporting The Guardian today, they put out a statement after Peter Mandelson's sacking, right? They put out a statement. Peter Mandelson's inevitable sacking is what happens when you put your party's faction interest before your party, before your country. If Starmer keeps running a narrow and brittle political project, it will break him and could break the Labour Party. We need a government and party of all the talents and all the views. Now, there's several things that are wrong with this statement. The first is appointing Mandelson, putting your party's faction interest before your party in the country is objectively untrue. Like I was saying yesterday, whether or not in hindsight it was a good idea to have appointed Mandelson, the reasoning for appointing him was sound and it worked out. They needed someone who could be a Trump whisperer, and Mandelson did it really well. If he just hadn't brought all the baggage with him, it would have been an inspired choice. So the idea that he was appointed because of factional interest is a nonsense. And it's disingenuous to say so. Then then it's a very clear attack on Starmer and his choice on the reshuffle. So it's an attempt to split Labour. So from that point of view, obviously, I don't support anyone that tries to split the party. Have your arguments. I'm not saying sit back, be quiet. Have your arguments, but you do it behind closed doors. You don't put out public statements literally undermining your own party and government. Powell's a bit pro-PR. Phillipson is anti. Is she? Okay. Maybe there's another bonus point for Powell there, if that's correct. Powell listens to backbench MPs. Phillipson overrides them, including 2 select committees on the HRC appointment. I will just point out, however, when you say that about Phillipson, she'll have had no choice in the matter. It's a bit like when people criticise Wes Street. Now, you can criticise, I've criticised Wes Street for all sorts of things, but when people criticise him, for example, for the trans issues, you have to bear in mind that's got nothing to do with him. Same with Phillipson on the EHRC thing. Nothing to do with her. That's come from number 10, right? So that's ultimately Starmer. I mean, we know it's coming from Blue Labour, but he's the one who's going along with them, right? So, and this is why it's very difficult to sort of know what the politics of a cabinet minister is, because the actions of a cabinet minister, sometimes it is their own policy. They're not just drones, right? They are actually formulating their own policies. And if you had a different person in the role, you'd get slightly different policies. But there are some things that come from the top, and ministerial responsibility simply requires that you go along with it. I mean, you have discussions in cabinet, but ultimately you're going to go along with it, right? So I wouldn't ascribe to either of them anything they may have done or said in cabinet that was clearly coming from the top, that wasn't their own. Like the transphobia in Labour, for example, is clear. It's coordinated. It's not random. It's come from the top. From my perspective, both candidates are pretty bad. I was hoping for Bell to meet the threshold. No, she was. I mean, she doesn't even know what the job entails. Why would you want her? She doesn't even know what the job is. She tried to talk about, I need to win this thing so that we can bring the Labour Party back to roots and blah blah blah. And it's like, deputy leader. It's the deputy leader of the party, not the government, right? The deputy leader of the government's David Lammy. That is appointed by Keir Starmer. This is the role for deputy leader of the party. So their only role is party matters, not government matters. So anyone linking the role with the government doesn't know what it involves. And the danger with that, the danger with having someone like that, is the deputy leader of Labour, right? Whoever wins, they can do nothing positive about government actions, nothing at all. They can only damage it. All they can do is cause damage. They cannot do any good. Now, within the party, they do have a few roles technically within the party, but that's literally party matters. Party matters, to be clear, are things like campaign issues, how you manage elections of various things, NEC leaders, stuff like that. They've got a role within the party. The deputy leader has no role within government. So if you have a deputy leader candidate who bangs on about stuff to do with the government, they don't know what the job is, and the chances are they would just actually act as a handmaiden to Reform UK. Anyone, whether consciously or not, anyone who weakens Labour, the Labour government specifically, is just helping Reform UK, and that's the last person who should be deputy leader. Which is why I'm sort of fairly ambivalent here, because I'm looking at both of them and I'm thinking, well, they're both probably going to be fairly safe. I don't think Lucy Powell has got an axe to grind. Yes, okay. I don't know why she was removed from cabinet. I don't think that was if she was replaced by Alan Campbell, right? Now, I don't really know anything about him. He was the chief whip. That's all I really know. I don't know anything about his politics. So I don't really know why Starmer felt the need to remove Powell from cabinet. It's like, was she brilliant? No. I mean, she was all right at the dispatch box. She did her job. And leader of the House of Commons is like, it's not really a major political position. But, you know, she didn't like the world on fire. But neither's this Alan Campbell fella. He's been an MP for yonks. He's been an MP since 1997. I don't even know who he is. I know he was the chief whip, but I don't know anything about him. So he's clearly not like a shining light either, is he? So there obviously was some factionalism in Lucy Powell's removal from cabinet. That was clearly, again, I mean, I'm seeing McSweeney's fingerprints on that. But nonetheless, Starmer made the decision. That clearly is factionalism. So there is a sense in which, if you're going to say that factional interests are not good for Labour, that is absolutely true. But my issue with this mainstream group is they are clearly promoting factional interests. They're just, do you know what I mean? You know, when it's one of these situations, you get it in Labour, you get it in the Conservatives, you get it everywhere. But, you know, where you've got any sort of broad church coalition. And there are some people in the group, in the organisation, in the movement, who genuinely want to do away with factionalism. I'm one of them. I hate tribalism, right? It does you no good at all. But then there are some other groups who say they're against factionalism only when they're not in the ascendancy. But what they actually mean is they want to be in the ascendancy instead. And then they're happy as Larry. The same people behind this mainstream, they were more than happy with factionalism when they were on top. That's my issue with them. Sire's there saying, I feel like I'm breathing a wee sigh of relief over this contest. Feels like it could have been way more damaging. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be featuring much in the news, is the way I look at it. I mean, they're both a bit boring. I think, you know, they are both a bit boring. There's also, I'm going to say, because there's 3 stages to the contest. So the first stage is now done. That's MPs. So candidates had to get 80 nominations. So there's only 2 that have got 80 nominations. You had to get 25% of MPs to back you. Then the second stage is you've got to get support from so many CLPs and unions, right? And then it'll go to a vote for the members. Now, I'm going to suggest that maybe they should, for next time, they should change the rules a little bit. Because what I'm going to say now is, what's the point of the second stage? So the second stage now is they're going to put out statements, they're going to do hustings and stuff, and constituency Labour parties, like, you know, each constituency's Labour members will have a meeting about who they're going to officially back. It doesn't, you know, and so there'll be a vote on that. It's a choice between 2, so that's going to be fairly tame. Both of them are going to get enough CLPs, because there's some CLPs back in one and some back in the other. And then as for the unions, I mean, the unions aren't really going to... the unions are not going to, like, back one and not the other. Because then what would happen is it would be the unions forcing the members to have no say. That would be a very bad look. So I would suggest of the affiliated unions, they'll probably just almost divvy it up amongst themselves a little bit. So you wouldn't have a situation where one of them got enough union support and the other one didn't, because that would be depriving the members of their choice. I mean, it's one thing if MPs do. So I'm going to suggest that, you know, if you have a deputy leadership contest where only 2 candidates emerge from the first stage, there's no point in having the second. Spend a few weeks. I'm not saying like draw up the ballots immediately. Spend a few weeks doing hustings still, but just go straight to the third stage, which is the members' vote. And it won't even need to be transferable vote because there's only 2 of them. It'll just be a straight who gets the most votes. Hi saying there, how bad is Reeves' handling of the economy? Is it really possible that the budget will be catastrophic, meaning she and Starmer ought to leave? No, her handling of the economy is absolutely stunning. Honestly, I cannot say it enough. If you read the mainstream media, then it's doom and gloom about the economy. Oh, Reeves under pressure, right? If you read like the Financial Times or the Economist or Bloomberg, like any of the ones written by any of the ones that are read by serious investors, people who actually want to, because the mainstream media, they basically write, they don't do news, they do opinions, right? Like me, all right? I openly do opinions. I don't pretend to be a journalist. And that's because their only interest is clicks, eyeballs. That's it. So they just want to present the spiciest news. Whereas a paper like the Financial Times, right? Its value its value to its customers is giving you accurate information. They can't afford to steer their readers wrong, so they can't really offer. They have to be honest, and what they report on is that they're not saying the economy is all singing, dancing, we're entering another golden age. The economy is still shit, right? But the signs are all much better than they were 12 months ago. I keep saying Lloyd's survey, which they've done for many years. Business confidence is at its highest level since 2014. We've had several quarters of growth now, sustained quarters of growth. We haven't had that for years, right? So although the news today is there was no growth in July, okay, that's 1 month, right? You want growth but you can't get growth every month anyway. And also, what matters is the growth each quarter. So far, Labour have been generating growth every quarter since they took over. We haven't had a period of several months of growth for years under the Tories. So, it's like, however you want to measure it, the handling has been good. Like Rachel Reeves, they need to stop banging on about it because it's not endearing them to the public, but they were dealt an incredibly bad hand by the Conservatives. The economy, the Conservatives took over. Okay, the economy was getting past the banking crisis when they took over, so obviously that was an easy stick to beat Labour with at the time, as if it was their fault. But then they had a sustained period where the world economy sort of was recovering, and they had incredibly low borrowing rates. So they were able to invest, as Labour were doing. The Conservatives could have invested in infrastructure and grown the economy, right? They could have invested in economy growing infrastructure, better transport, better healthcare, better education. But no, they took funding from all those. They squandered all those years of cheap borrowing, but they still loaded up the debt. We went from 75% of GDP debt to about 100% of GDP debt, all of which happened under the Conservatives when they weren't even investing. They weren't even borrowing for investment. So then Labour have now arrived with this massive debt pile, and the cost of borrowing is more expensive. Interest rates have been going up now. And although they're coming back down a bit, they're not going to go back down to where they were. So... But there we go. Phil, they're saying, not sure where Phillipson stands on trans issues, also assisted death. She's voted against the assisted dying bill, but not sure on what grounds. No, nor am I, in all honesty. Shame Darren Jones isn't in the running. I think it would have been a bit weird for him to have run, given his new role in Downing Street. But there we go. Do I think Starmer would be likely to offer Powell a cabinet position if she wins? So, that's an interesting question. If I was Starmer, I would say, yes, you make her minister without portfolio in a heartbeat. She'll be perfectly safe. She was absolutely fine in cabinet. Really, I don't really know why. I mean, what I suspect is I don't think Morgan McSweeney is learning lessons. I hope Starmer is starting to see McSweeney as the source of all the shit advice. Before it's too late. McSweeney, presumably, again, I don't want to blame him for every bad decision here, but he has been responsible for quite a few of them. Did Starmer really just genuinely want to get rid of Powell himself? Okay, whatever. It would not make sense to keep her out of cabinet. It would just create an unnecessary fracture within the party. So if I was Starmer, I would say, look, make a minister without portfolio. Now, that does have a knock-on effect because, he can have as many ministers as he likes, but only so many of them are allowed to have the ministerial salary. So you can have more. Boris Johnson famously had a lot of ministers, but I think you're only allowed about I can't remember the exact number, it's about 120-ish that are allowed to, because you get an extra bit of money for being a minister, but you're only allowed to appoint so many for that. So if he makes Powell a minister without portfolio, then either, I mean, he can give her the position without the pay, but then will anyone make an issue of that she won't get a ministerial salary? But if he does have to put her on like the list, then that means he has to take someone else off it, like a junior minister, but still that means he has to sort of ask a junior minister to carry on doing the same job for no money or get rid of that junior ministerial position. So what I would probably do as Starmer, if she won, or maybe beforehand, I'd just have a private word with her. I would just say, look, if you win, this is what I would suggest, that you should come back to cabinet as minister without portfolio, but explain the situation about the money and like, do you mind? I won't give you any special responsibilities. You can basically just be in cabinet, but I'd have to chop a minister to pay you, so you're all right not getting any extra money, and just make sure she's cool with it. So if anyone makes an issue out of it, it won't be her. But obviously, from Starmer's point of view, it's way tidier if Phillipson wins at this point. And to be honest, there might be a decent chance of that, because although part of me thinks that members will just pick Powell because she will be the outsider and they want an outsider, because they're obviously, you'd have to be blind, deaf and dumb to think that Labour at the moment are making all the right moves and just back Starmer, right? So obviously anyone paying any attention at all is looking at the shit show and going, yeah, we need more balanced voices in cabinet. But then the other side of it is, you'd think to yourself, but Powell was in cabinet before while the shit show was still going on, so she obviously wasn't able to divert it as leader of the House of Commons, so why would she be able to as like deputy leader, right? And also we had some polling recently that suggests that actually Bridget Phillipson is by far and away the most popular amongst members. So it may well be that Bridget Phillipson wins, and you know, and that sorts that out. But there might be an argument for Powell in that if this mainstream group is going to seek to try and divide Labour, split Labour, wouldn't it be better if Lucy Powell was deputy leader and in cabinet? Assuming Starmer doesn't try and do something stupid by saying, well, no, she doesn't get a cabinet position, because that would be really foolish. Won't pay the same vibes wise, I'm more for Powell. Yeah, I'm honestly, in terms of them as they are, and I know both of them want to be judged as for the people they are. Like Powell, for example, has been bristling because people have been saying she's the Burnham like Trojan horse, and she's been saying, well, that's, you know, no, it's misogynistic to just say we're proxies for other people, right, for other men specifically, which is a fair enough comment. But in terms of them for who they are, I really couldn't choose between them. I don't know enough about either of them. Neither of them have made much impact as themselves. But anyway. Notice the Guardian's quite happy doing its yo-yo on the economy every month. Economy down below to Reeves, economy up boost for Reeves. Rinse, repeat, absolute dribble. Well, it's not particularly useful. But again, I don't get my economic news from the sort of... I mean, it's not a tabloid, but they're all basically behaving like tabloids these days. So I don't get it from the mainstream media. I get it from economic. If I want specialist news, I get it from a specialist outlet. So I have, you know, subscriptions with like Financial Times and Bloomberg, for example. I just look at those. Tribalism products of social evolution. It is, yeah, as far as I'm concerned. Whether like it or not, it's a natural thing for humans to do. Diversification makes tribalism almost a certainty for our species. In terms of instinct. But the thing is, another thing we evolved is a brain. Quite a beefy brain. In fact, we have a brain that is so impressive, some of us, that it takes 30 years. Like we talk about growing up, right? So when you're in your late teens, you are physically grown up. You know, an 18-year-old is physically grown up, and you're treated as a grown-up in law and stuff like that, but your brain is still cooking. It takes until your late 20s before your brain has finished growing, which is why young men do such stupid things. I certainly did, because you've grown up, you've got all the rights of a full citizen, but your brain is still an idiot, right? But once we've cooked this marvellous organ inside our crania, then we should use it. And we should be able to use our brains to override our instincts. Tribalism is an instinct. It's not an intellectual feature. It's an instinct. And we're supposed to be able to analyse our human instincts and realise how maybe some of them are not entirely suitable for the modern world. Which one would be best for covering for Starmer at the dispatch box? Well, it doesn't matter because David Lamb is doing that. Neither of them will cover for him. I mean, don't get confused because it was Angela Rayner. Angela Rayner didn't cover for Keir Starmer because she was deputy leader of the party. She covered for him because he chose her for her to cover for him, right? Who am I supporting? I honestly don't know. Let me tell you what it comes down to for me, right? And neither of these, I'm afraid, if neither of them are watching, but say hi if you are. But I don't think either Phillipson or Powell are watching this. But if they were, neither of them will be happy with the fact that it's come down for me to two things that have got nothing to do with either of them, because in terms of their own personal situations, they're both the same to me. They're both northern women, if you want to play into that sort of like tick box. They both came from ordinary backgrounds and went to Oxford. One of them's a scientist. Oh, bonus point, great, good one. But in terms of themselves, they're both much of a muchness. They're both perfectly capable. They both can look after themselves at the dispatch box. The deputy leader will have no reason to ever be at the dispatch box, though, so that's irrelevant. But neither of them is a big personality. Put it this way, I don't think either of them is going to be an asset for Labour in campaigns. So I don't think either of them is going to be an asset from that point of view. So for me, it comes down to two things. There's an advantage to both for me, and it depends which is the biggest one. The advantage with Bridget Phillipson is that it's tidy, because Keir Starmer doesn't have to then do anything. She's already a cabinet minister. She just becomes the Secretary of State for Education, the Minister for Women's and Equalities, and the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. And that's it. Nothing. Starmer doesn't have to do a thing, right? It also can't be attacked in the news as blow to Starmer, because if Powell's elected, they'll try it, you know. They'll try the old blow to Starmer as Powell is elected, because of course they want to stoke division, right? Clickbait. So you don't get that. In fact, if they have to report at all, it'll have to be boost to Starmer, right? Even though it's not even a boost to him either. It'll just be a thing. So that's what makes me lean towards Phillipson. But then what makes me go, hang on a minute, maybe Powell, is because I think there is a danger that Starmer has factionalised the cabinet. Because, like, who replaced Powell? Campbell. Who's he? Why? What is it about Campbell that makes him more suitable than Powell? Did Powell mess up as Leader of the House of Commons? No, she didn't. She never messed up. She didn't shit the bed. She didn't do anything wrong, right? Like, what's this Campbell going to do better? I mean, we can wait and see, but he's been an MP since 1997, and he's never done anything remarkable. He's never done anything. He was a very junior minister in Gordon Brown's government. That's it, right? There's nothing to him. I don't know anything about him. I'm not disparaging him. He's not an obvious superstar. Do you know what I mean? If Starmer had replaced Powell with an up-and-coming an up-and-coming star, that would have been it. I would have said to myself, well, he's just, he had to make some room for the up-and-comings. But Campbell's not an up-and-coming. He's been an MP since 1997 and he's never shone. I mean, he's loyal enough, right? He does his job, but it isn't. So, you know, so I'm thinking to myself that this reshuffle, I mean, I said at the time the reshuffle was wholly unnecessary and actually, I think, damaging. It doesn't do you any favours to keep moving ministers about. So I already thought the reshuffle was a bad idea to the extent it was done. And now I'm thinking, when Starmer needs the support of the backbenchers and he keeps giving them reasons to chunter, he really doesn't want to be setting himself up in an ivory tower. There's no point. It's bad enough he's got yes men in bloody Downing Street. He doesn't want them in cabinet as well. So then there's a part of me thinking that Powell as deputy just forces him to have that other voice around him. So then maybe Powell. But I don't know. I don't know which factor's more important. But I don't get a vote anyway, so it doesn't matter. So we'll put it that way. Wangi Pagan there saying that still doesn't change the fact that diversification drives tribalism. I don't think it does. How does it? What drives tribalism is not using your brain. People, particularly at the top of politics, you can understand ordinary people who don't spend a lot of their brains resources thinking about politics. But people who are political beasts should every single day be thinking about politics, not acting on instinct. I actually, do you know what? I hate it when someone describes as a virtue a politician because they wear their heart on their sleeve as if it's a good thing. No, it's not a good thing. When you say that someone wears their heart on their sleeve, what you're actually saying is they don't engage their brain, right? It's actually insulting. It's an insult to be described as wearing your heart on your sleeve, I think. And it endears you to the public, but it doesn't endear them to me. Looks like Mandelson's going to try bringing Starmer down with him. Why? What's happened? I don't think he will, by the way. What's happened? I haven't seen anything. Mandelson will toe the party line. He's not someone who's trying to trip Labour up. Saying there's someone on the far left of the Labour Party who is trans. I have little choice of Lucy Powell, both not great. Again, what I would say, I mean, if that's your thinking, that's your thinking. What I would say is, if you're voting for them on policy issues, it's not going to make any difference. Neither of them are going to, because of their role, have any impact on government policy at all. Like Lucy Powell can already influence government policy. She can already have her say. She's an MP, right? Bridget Phillipson is Education Secretary and Women's and Equalities Minister. If Lucy Powell refuses to toe the part, if she refuses to accept ministerial responsibility as deputy leader, she won't be in cabinet. Starmer will not be able to put her in cabinet because all ministers, even junior ministers, have to accept ministerial responsibility. And unfortunately, like, she can be a voice, but she can be a voice without being deputy leader on trans issues. What she won't be able to do is to undermine publicly Labour's position on anything at all, if she were to be put in cabinet. She can only do it as a backbencher. Only possible reason for keeping McSweeney's in place is that it looks politically careless to lose someone else from the team so soon. No. Do you know what? You can easily, like this absolutely, they've lost one person from government. That's Angela Rayner. That's it, one person. This idea about two senior members of the government is a nonsense. That's like media spin. Mandelson was not a member of the government. He's an ambassador. If it weren't for the fact he were a politician, so let's say they'd never appointed Mandelson. Let's say they'd appointed a career diplomat, right? And then something similar emerged and they had to be sacked, right? First of all, I bet you there wouldn't have been the same pressure to sack an actual diplomat, by the way. But if that had have happened, no one would have linked it with Rayner. No one would have linked it with Rayner at all. Now, you can get rid of McSweeney. Like, or put it this way, they've already changed the director of communications recently. They've moved Darren Jones in. Is anyone linking those changes with Rayner and Mandelson? No. No, you can 100. Starmer can 100% get rid of McSweeney. And do you know what? If he got rid of McSweeney, as long as he didn't replace him with one of the people McSweeney appointed, like as long as you get someone completely separate to replace him, you'd actually get a lot of people breathing a sigh of relief. They wouldn't be interested in attacking them in it. The Tories might, but then no one cares about them. Anyway, we've completely run out of time. We've got to get ready for another bloody stream in a minute. Hang on a minute, what's this? Mountain Fury number 10 is decided to do it per Dan Hodges. Okay, so I'm not, sorry, I don't actually know what you, hold on, I have to go back to another comment. Is this a follow-on comment? So I don't actually know what that's about, Ragnarok, but what I would say is, oh, hold on. Oh, Dan Hodges, right, Dan Hodges writes for the Mail on Sunday, is what I will say about that. Yes, Dan Hodges sometimes says sensible things, but it's to draw you in. He is a Tory. He is a Tory client journalist. So what Dan Hodges has to say about anything is largely meaningless, right? He occasionally says things to sort of suck people in, but he is basically he's paid specifically to promote the Tories. Mandelson should just retire. Why have this ridiculous fight if what you're saying is true? Well, Mandelson will obviously is not going to be given another official role in Labour anyway, is he? So effectively he will. But anyway, we'll leave it there anyway. We've gone well over time. Thanks for coming on, everyone. Have a great rest of Friday. And until next time, I'll see you later.